Then moving on to sleep, probably the biggest factor in everything. And this is something that I messed up on for so many years. And I think when you're in college and you're young that you think, oh, I can just, you fuck off sleep. And it's all about training and nutrition because that's what you read about in magazines and that's what's shoved down our throat. But basically everything goes to shit if you're not sleeping correctly. You actually have a tougher time sticking to your diet. Of course, you're weaker in the gym. You can't go as hard and as heavy. Your motivation dwindles. You're not as mentally sharp. You're more stressed in general. And can actually, funny one is, lack of sleep and higher stress can cause you to hold water weight because your cortisol goes up. So that can actually mask any body fat you're losing, can be very demotivating. So sleep is kind of the fundamental of everything. And that's something that I, excuse the pun, slept on for a couple of years. So what I recommend doing is having a nighttime routine in place. So I don't have an alarm in the morning. I have an alarm at night telling me when to go to bed. So I have an alarm at 9. It's like ding, ding. And it's like, go to fucking sleep, Rob. And then I'll have notifications not come through my phone at 7 p.m. There's a setting you can do that. I'll try not have a massive meal, in the evening. Nothing to do with it'll turn to fat. Just, it's kind of uncomfortable to sleep on that. Try not to drink too much or you'll be going to the bathroom all night. And then try avoid screens and wind down and sleep with the phone in the other room. So they're the kind of main things I do with sleep. And then also wake up and go to sleep at the same time every day if possible. Just get into a routine because it's just good for your circadian rhythm. So they are, just off the top of my head, some basics. You follow that, you'll be jacked and shredded in no time.
Oh, that is a lot of information really quickly.
So it's nutrition, high protein, high volume food, lots of veggies, lots of meat. Your training, lift heavy, and then your sleep, a good sleep routine, and stay hydrated. So there's 4 things.
One of the things you said I wanted to pry into was you said about lifting heavy, and you gave examples of weights or whatever. I think you said 120, 140, 160. Yeah. You're doing that. So this is, again, thinking about cutting, doing a 12-week cut.
Yep.
You're going to test yourself. You do a 1-rep max you're talking about a full set of those weights. And then you want to try and do them fully carbed up, fully energized, feeling good, and you lift, and then you want to do the same thing with the cut in 12 weeks and maintain that strength, right?
Pretty much.
But you're doing, because just for me in the gym today, I got this psychopathic Dominican Republic bodybuilder, personal trainer that's making me do, he's making me push heavy, but he's making me do 20 reps, 15 reps, 12 reps, and then I go to failure as well, and he does drop sets and all this other crazy stuff, which I don't control. Yeah. But just for a normal thought process, when you're doing a test, if you want to call it a test,
yes,
at the pre-cut, post-cut of this heavy weight lift, let's say it's 100 kilo bench press, just to keep it simple, you're doing 100 kilo bench, how many reps do I want to be hitting on that?
Yeah, so usually the typical bodybuilding hypertrophy range that we're doing now, maybe in your earlier days you'd be doing lower rep, more strength-based stuff. So 3 sets of 8. That's probably the one you've heard so much. And then, so at the start of your workout, I recommend keeping things as consistent as possible. So just no fancy stuff, no burnout sets. At the start, you just do your usual 3 sets of 8 on whatever you're doing. Then you want to keep that consistent throughout the plan. Then, as your workout goes on, comes to the end, you can do the burnout stuff. You can do drop sets and supersets. But I recommend try to keep the beginning of your workout as consistent as possible, because if you're constantly switching things up, let's say you start off with a superset one day, or you start off with a burnout set, or you start off with a different exercise, you actually can't accurately gauge your progress. Because if you're, let's say one week you start off with squats, the next was leg press. It's still a leg movement, but it's completely different. So it's hard to actually see if you're maintaining or making progress.
Okay, so 3 sets of 8 for a set amount, and then you need to keep that number and maintain that 12 weeks later, but on a less calorie intake, 500 deficit or whatever it's going to be, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
so
cool.
You're actually better at summarizing it than me. That's exactly it.
I kind of understand what you're saying, but I just want to make sure it's super
That's
clear.
bang on. Yeah.
And then one thing I wanted to ask about, because there's a lot of noise around this whole fasting thing, intermittent fasting. What's your opinion on doing intermittent fasting? How do you find it? Do you do that? How do you feel about it?
Oh, I do it every day.
Okay.
First of all, so now I'm the man to talk to you about this, and I'll tell you why, right? So I do it more or less every day. There's some days I want to eat some breakfast. I fucking eat some breakfast, right? But so I do it, but I don't think that there's any magical benefits. Some people The reason that like there's a lot of guys out there and their whole approach is intermittent fasting, their whole shtick, and they're doing that to sell intermittent fasting programs. Okay, and so they're like saying this is the way, this will boost your growth hormone, boost your testosterone, do all this magical stuff, and it's just not. So people say that fasting boosts your growth hormone. It does so much in such a small way that you can't even measure it. It's like a few percentage that will make no significant difference, you know. And people say, oh, you know, it'll promote autophagy, P-H-A-G-Y, autophagy, whatever you want to say it. It's basically like it does these things in such small doses that it's like, and you can achieve through typical dieting. Mm-hmm. So the main reason I do intermittent fasting is just you get to eat bigger meals, because you're eating less throughout the day, and it's just more convenient, and it's better for productivity. If I smash a massive breakfast in the morning, I'm like half asleep. Yeah. You know, I'm just dead, and it's like, it's also time consuming. I do all my work, I wake up at like 6, and I'll work shitload of caffeine, shitload of water, straight in the laptop for 4 hours, on my phone straight away. You know, none of that, leave it in the other room for an hour, and I'll just do 4 hours deep work in the morning, and then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll eat. So that's the main reason I do intermittent fasting, is for productivity. I do it, and I don't think that it's giving me magical superpowers like some people try and sell.
Oh, but then what about working out when you're fasted? So you said you wake up and you work, as in
on laptop,
make money.
Yeah.
And then do you eat before you work out, or how do you do that? No,
usually I'll just have pre-workout, which is no calories, and then I'll go to the gym. And now, another thing, man, we're getting some good topics here, okay? So it's far more important what you eat in 24 hours than, you know, hour per hour. And so let me say this, right? Let's say you have a meal at 8 p.m., right? You go to sleep at 10 or whatever. Do you think all that food is just gone, like out of your system? No, you're going to hold on to it until the next time you work out. So instead of worrying about like, oh, I have to have a perfect pre-workout meal, or I have to have the post-workout anabolic window, just focus on what you eat in the entire 24 hours. And that's just a kind of a way easier and way more realistic approach to your nutrition.
And then so you think, I mean, that's how I've kind of looked at things now. I'm looking more...
To be honest, I love training fasted. I feel really sharp.
Yeah. I feel mentally sharp, but then I don't know, because I'm getting into bodybuilding now, if you want to call it that. I've never really lifted weights, so I have lifted weights athletically, like we said, differently, heavy, high reps, trying to improve power for performance, etc., etc., etc. Now, when I'm lifting in the gym, I'm trying to work out if it's... Do you perform better when you're calorie deficient, or when you're fasted, or do you perform better when you've eaten? I don't really know. So I'm trying to like test it, but I don't know what your opinion is.
It's mainly down to personal preference, especially if you're just lifting. If you're doing like a marathon or something endurance-based like fighting, you know, you probably should have some carbohydrates or some food in general around your training. But if you're just doing a little hour, a little bench, you know, there's going to be food in your system, and it's not as important compared to if you're doing a professional sport.
So if you're going to go for like a personal best lift, for example, like is the day you're going to try and lift as heavy as possible, you would do that fasted, or you would do that fed?
I've hit some really big lifts fasted, but you know, maybe you want to have something an hour or two before, something light, but again, it's not that important as some people make it out to be.
Okay, cool.